Hi everyone. So as you know, my name is Ricardo. I've been working on startups for around 10 years now, and right now I'm working as a CTO in a Norwegian startup called Total Control, and also I am running a design and engineering studio, helping impact-driven companies with their products. So coming from design to development. Um, so as today topics is about product market fit. So this presentation is titled How to Build Your Lovable Product and Get a Product Market Fit. Um, so I will try to go through what we're gonna talk today. So one is, what are the two main rules I would advise to follow in product development? What is a lovable product is based on my feedback or opinion, and what is product market fit, and how do you detect that you have achieved product market fit, and what is the a process that you can follow to achieve it, and what is the process to build the product itself, um, and then who do you need to build a product, and who should be part of your initial team, or you as a founder, or someone who is a co-founder, or hiring uh, um, someone for product development. So the rules are quite simple. So as uh, yeah, Radoslav was mentioning, I think one important part is always talk to with your potential users, ideally from day one. Since I'm a developer, I am saying day zero. It's like geeky, but okay. Um, Basically, the important thing of talking to users is not to ask them, of course, about how is the day, or how is their life. Of course, that's important also, but it's about understanding their needs, their problems, their pain points, as much as possible. I will mention some ways to do that in the remaining part of the presentation, and of course empathize with them. So it means understand, see or put in the shoes of your customers and understand their pains, right? That's more important than just because you have an idea, then you start building it from day one, and but you are not really understanding the needs of the market that you want to focus. So believe me, it's really important to understand the needs and spend the time there, at least at the beginning. And of course, this is always evolving. And the rule number two is, of course, as I said, always remember the rule number one. This is never forget this, because it's quite important. Talk to potential users. So what we define as a lovable product. So I think we are already in 2023, which is like people already is having huge expectations about your product. um, I am not sure if maybe, of course, in the early 2000s and so on, there was no real rules of design. There was no much experience in that moment. But now, even in B2B, people is expecting a seamless product and really good design, and that's where we are defining what is a lovable product. So that MVP that Radoslav is mentioning, I would advise that this is having a certain level. Like, okay, we of course don't need to arrive to perfect, but it needs to have a certain level of easiness to use. So it's like, okay, that the product is actually solving the main problem that you have detected for your customers, and that you don't need to read a tutorial to understand the software. That is also, of course, solving a pain point. So as we have talked in the past, so don't build 1000 features, just focus in one core feature who is solving a specific problem, and then after you have confirmed product market fit, you start add complementary features to it. And then third but not least is visually appealing. um, so because, if you have something that is not completely decent, let's say. So you can lose customers only for that purpose. So this is applying more for B2C, maybe B2B. Okay, people is more flexible still, but the expectations is are higher now because people already are used to using all these tools like Facebook, Instagram, and so on, which already are optimized, right? So you need to try to find a balance into releasing something that is not so bad design. The good part is that now there is a lot of frameworks already set up and rules, so you can reuse those frameworks. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. So if you are making, let's say, a website, you can follow certain frameworks like Bootstrap, or there are many others. Or if you are building a mobile app, you can follow Android Material Design or Apple Design Systems also. Um, then, what is product market fit? So, um, ideally, this is as again is where you need to focus from day one, how to achieve product market fit. Um, then, how do you we detect that you have arrived to it? Is of course there are three variables that you need to kind of get. I mean, it doesn't mean you need to get the three of them. You can get one out of three or two out of three, and it would mean product market fit for you. One of it is, of course, that people is are paying you for your solution, and ideally they are paying you even before you build it. As Radoslav gave us his example for his startup, so it's even better if you can achieve pre-sales. So because pre-sales will mean that people is interested into solving their problem, right? And they are putting the money there. Also, it can be time, meaning that even if they are not paying you, they are using the tool. Let's say if you have a free version of your software, but they are actively using it in daily basis or weekly basis or monthly basis. Of course, you need to define what does it mean for you. What is the ideal usage for you? So let's say for maybe for a facility management company, is better to use something once a week compared to using it only once a month. So that will make the difference, right, into success. And then social capital, of course, that those companies or people are referring to you to other of their friends. So that's important. So imagine you start receiving calls or emails from people who says, well, I work with this person recommend me to work with you because you are amazing. So then that will mean that you have achieved product market fit in that moment, right? Um, then okay, how do we achieve product market fit? So of course there are different ways to do that, but I mean there is already a framework defined for it. It's called design thinking, for example, and is basically a process where you are making a research first and making interviews with customers. So in this stage, which is called empathize. Basically, the idea is that, let's say today you have, yeah, let's take one example. Like today you were doing this Web3 social content creator tool. So then the ideal situation is that first you go and schedule meetings with 10 to 15 potential content creators that are going to be in your platform, plus 10 to 15 of the investors or people looking for content creators. So imagine you will have to dedicate an interview of around 30 people in each of your target. And then in those interviews, the important thing is to put yourself into their shoes and understand, okay, what are their needs? So, and how do you get that? It's like you will ask them questions type of, hey, how are you? What is the hardest part of X process for you? So, and like for example, what is the hardest part of finding a creative talent or content creator for you. So then this person will tell you how they are doing this process right now. And then you can follow up questions like, okay, how often do you find it this painful, or why this is painful? And then based on those initial questions, you will already kind of guide yourself into, okay, what are the main problems that these people have? Making interviews to these 10 to 15 is to find patterns. And with those patterns, then you can say, okay, 8 out of 15 people is having problems in the process of, let's say, finding talent because is because X. I don't know exactly the reason right now, but let's say you will find the pattern, and with those patterns, where you pass to this part which called define. So basically, the idea is to state clearly what are the problems that you are solving. Once you define that, and you need to make sure that you really have a problem or a need that they actually care. So it's something that makes them down to sleep, ideally scenario. Then you go to ideation. So it's when you start with your team, then you start making assumptions and creating ideas of solutions for those problems. So let's say, oh, well, they have problem in this specific problem. So let's try to do X. Let's build an app for that, or let's try to build a service or something, right? So with those ideas and brainstorming, then you go to prototype, which is already more, okay, if let's say I decided to build a mobile app, then you already start designing an actual mobile app with the certain feature who will solve the problem. And of course, test it, which is basically, okay, with a clickable prototype, not without the need even to build it in development, already a code in it, you can go to interviews again and talk to these customers and say, okay, here is the solution. uh, Use it and think out loud what you understand, what you don't understand, and then based on that you can iterate that clickable prototype. So as you see, this is an iterative process. So ideal case, you are always operating into this circle. So it's not that you just do empathize process only one and forget about this. Ideal case, you are doing this, let's say, every quarter or every month. Of course, it depends on how big are these research, right? Um, of course, in this process of prototyping, right? Let's say that once you finish this cycle, and of course, let's say you already define, okay, I build a mobile app who will have certain specific feature, and you already kind of confirm it based on a design that this is the way we should go. Then you can go and, okay, let's maybe make a final version of the prototype. Then of course let's develop it and do it, actually coding it now, and then of course testing it again and then release it. And of course you continue this cycle that anyways you need to continue monitoring how the users are interacting with your tool, and then taking decisions about what to change again into design, right? Let's say that the process of design more or less complies the entire cycle of design thinking. So it's kind of embedded into this step. So design is already here, and then you, once you are sure that you are in a good direction, then you move to development. Yeah. So then, okay, how do you achieve this process? And in general, of course, ideal scenario is that you have at least a digital product designer in your team from day one who can help you with this research, so meaning making interviews to potential users, and then of course analyze this data and then take decisions and with those decisions, then designing an interface uh, for your product, right? And of course, the other person that you need after having this design is, well, or even during the design process, because you need to kind of make sure that you are designing something that is actually feasible to code. Then a senior software developer who can actually implement the design was made, right? So ideally you have these, at least these two roles in your company, who can actually deliver the MVP of your product. But again, the most important thing of this process is that always try to start the design with a research, because that will save you a lot of time and money into the design and development process itself. So if I didn't do a research and then I start coding something that is not backed by data, then it will cost me to come back. Anyways, we'll have to do the research, and then I will have to change the entire code to achieve some changes, right? Um, yeah. Now talking about what is a digital product designer. So there is a lot of designers out there. So just make sure that you hire a person who is person working in interfaces and user experience of mobile apps or web apps and so on. Not a graphic designer or a brand designer or a packaging designer, because these are completely other areas. And of course they are good, of course, but they don't have the skill set for actually building an UI UX of a website, or making interviews to understand the needs of a customer. Um, and just to clarify, when I am talking about design, it's not only about how, as Steve Jobs mentioned, it's not only about what it looks like and feels like, is how actually works. So the most important thing is how it actually works. So if to do something I need to do 5 clicks compared to just doing one, right? So of course the product who will win will be the one who give you only 1 click and you solve the problem, right? So design is more about what is the user flow, how does it work, and to make it to how the product works, so to solve the problem in the shortest time. Um, with For more details, of course, yeah, a digital product designer typically will be a person who have a lot of skills. So typically, the most important skills, of course, for this context of, if we are talking about companies and tech startup and software as a service, of course, it would be to, of course, the person needs to know how to make questions and do research. The person needs to to understand how to put themselves in the shoes of the customers and understand psychology and user behavior. And of course they need to understand the business, the industry, and how it's working, right? So ideal case, the person is onboarded into understanding how these companies operate, or the users operate. And then of course after that, typically, okay, there could be a person who can do all of these, or there could be one, or sorry, they divide the roles between, okay, a UX researcher plus an UI UX designer, which are more focusing already into the interface and into working with certain tools. One of them called Figma, for example, or other tools in the market where they can actually create the wireframes and create prototypes and the final design of the interface. Yeah, so that's basically it. Do you have any questions?